Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to talk a little bit about red dots. Now, I'm not going to get into the specifics of comparing different red dots or why you would choose or wouldn't choose one. I will do a whole separate video on that here in the future. The reason that I chose to do this video in the Handgun 102 series is to kind of explain and hopefully help you guys who are using red dots to use them a little bit more effectively. So I didn't do this video in the Handgun 101 because I personally really believe and stress that you should have a basic and good understanding of how to use iron sights with pistols, arguably even before you use a red dot, because yes, a red dot can make the aiming process much simpler, but it can also cause a lot of issues for new shooters, mainly finding the dot and just how it actually works. So we're going to cover some of that in today's video to hopefully help some of you a little bit more advanced guys out and gals and get you shooting and ready to go. Probably most of you have seen in my previous videos that I run a red dot, and I've been running it for about 3.5, pushing on 4 years now, which is the Trijicon RMR. And especially this optic was all the rage the past couple of years, and now there's a bunch of different optics that are kind of competing with it. I know closed emitters are a huge thing right now. For me, it has worked flawlessly and continuously for years and years and years. I have only changed the battery on this one time, and the reason I did that is because I put this on a rifle for a little bit to try some things out, and I figured I might as well just change the battery, and then I put it back on here, and I've never had to change the battery since. So is that responsible? You know, you could argue yes and no, but like I said in the intro, that will be a whole different video that we'll talk about picking your red dot and what to look for, what you may want versus what somebody else may want. I'm going to give you a few tips and tricks for using a red dot. So like I stated before, using a red dot can definitely simplify the aiming process. I'm not lining up iron sights, focusing on my front sight, doing all this kind of stuff, making sure it's good and there's even spacing around. Getting confused with using the actual metal or plastic itself or using the dots or lines on there. A red dot can really simplify that, because all I have to do is essentially, once it's zeroed, put the dot over whatever I want to shoot and pull the trigger. And as long as my fundamentals are good, the shot's going to hit almost exactly where I want it to. The biggest thing or downside that I have seen, which I have personally witnessed multiple times even now with who I would consider pretty good shooters, are things like in our Genesis After Dark event or Genesis Practical Application event, is people draw and present their pistol, they have a red dot, but they can't find the dot. You know, they're looking around, I see them searching around trying to find the dot, and it becomes almost a hindrance more than something that will actually help you. We're going to cover how to become more proficient with a red dot, go over some tips and tricks and some things that I think people don't actually know. And then I will cover how to actually get better with presenting and finding your dot when shooting. Before I go over how to actually find your dot a little bit better, I want to talk about your focus and what are you actually looking at when you are shooting. So obviously, or maybe not obviously, when you're using a red dot, you put the dot, or whether it's red or green or whatever emblem it actually is in there, you're going to put that over the target that you want. You're going to make sure that it's in the center of your glass. And once it's there, you are going to pull the trigger. Now, there is an argument for, you know, holds or drops or whatever. In reality, the vast majority of times, especially if you're shooting something in 9mm, until you get out to like 75, 80, 90, 100 yards, you don't really have to worry about the bullet dropping, right? Is it something to take into consideration? Sure, absolutely. But for the vast majority of times that you're shooting, whether it be practicing here at the range or in a competition or whatnot, you really don't have to worry about that at all. So that's a different topic for a different time. Focus is kind of one of the things that I see people kind of get a little wrapped up in. So do I focus on the dot itself? Do I focus on the target? Am I going back and forth, you know, with my eyes? What can I do or what should I do when I'm using my red dot? And the simple answer is you just want to overlay the dot on whatever you're looking at. So unlike iron sights, where I am focusing on the front sight post of my pistol, for a red dot, I'm focusing on the target and overlaying that dot on said target. So the target should be in focus and the red dot will also sort of be in focus, but essentially I want to look exactly at what I'm shooting through the glass of my red dot and then I will overlay that dot to wherever I want to shoot, and I'll pull the trigger. One of the other things that I've seen is, well, what do I do when the dot is actually moving when I start to shoot a little bit faster? So recoil is inevitable. We'll talk about that in an upcoming video here really soon. But recoil is inevitable, and understanding how your sights work and move when you're shooting is critical. This is going to go into the next topic of discussion, which is practice and dry fire. And when you are actually shooting a lot, you will start to understand how your gun recoils. Now, with a good grip and good trigger squeeze and all this kind of stuff, your pistol should sort of stay in a relatively repeatable motion or recoil pattern. In this recoil pattern, which is going to be different based on different people's grips and different handguns, different calibers, all that kind of stuff, you should be able to get sort of in a rhythm, and the dot should be going up and down. If it's going left, right, or some other crazy direction, work on your grip. Now, there are also cases where the dot is still seen in the glass the entire time. So maybe you just have a really strong grip, or maybe your pistol is compensated or ported, so it helps keep it down. And that makes it a lot simpler because I just can see the red dot the whole time in the glass and continue shooting. But if your dot is not coming back into the glass right away, that goes into my next topic, which is dry fire and practice. So my biggest tip for finding the dot while shooting or while presenting the pistol is to practice. Just practice, 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 and dry fire. It sounds really mundane and boring, and in some cases it kind of is, but it is 100% the way to get good at drawing, presenting, and shooting your pistol with a red dot very well. So some simple things to do is to just practice presenting the pistol. So starting at something like compress ready and pushing the pistol out and making sure that the dot is directly in my eye line or in sight with my eye line so that I'm ready to go. And I should be able to replicate that eventually 99% of the time that I draw my pistol in whatever direction that I'm going. So whether I'm going to the right, whether I'm going to the left, whether I'm going up, whether I'm going down, I should be able to present the pistol and have that dot be perfectly in line with my eye. And so over time, as you practice this, you'll start to pick it up. Go slow first, and then slowly but surely increase speed over time, and you'll sort of get it. But it takes practice and repetition. There's really no way to get around. Now, along with just presenting the pistol, I want you to practice with your holster. So I'm assuming if you are in this series and you've been following along and you're sort of in this intermediate category, you probably have a holster, whether that's a concealed carry holster or an outside the waistband or both. And it's important to practice with both of these, and in that case, just present the pistol after you draw. So draw the pistol, present, and make sure that your red dot is in line with your eye. Once you have all of that set and finished, which is just practice and repetition, like I said before, there's absolutely no way to get around it other than just to do it hundreds and hundreds and thousands of times. But once you have that all set and ready, then you can actually, what I would recommend, work on shooting with your red dot and keeping the recoil under control and finding that dot when you shoot. And once again, this is just practice. You're going to have to shoot maybe a couple hundred rounds. It doesn't need to be at once, but over time to actually get comfortable with finding your dot in your pistol's recoil pattern. I know that this was kind of a quick video and sort of a slight breakdown of it. Like I said before, we're going to do a more in-depth video talking about picking red dots and using red dots and their actual function later on. But this video is going to specifically talk about essentially what is important when you're shooting, and I hope that it helped. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. Stop in store, call the store, shoot us a DM on one of our social medias, and we'll be more than willing to help. Remember to like and subscribe. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.